What's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you, supernatural or not? Couple days ago I woke up to my home alarm going off. The thing literally hurts to walk near it. The scary part was, after I shut it off, I checked the doors and one was wide open. I also live alone. Alarm scared off your intruder. I know, that's why it was scary. This is why I tell my wife, if the alarm goes off in the middle of the night or day you should investigate first. When the first thing you do is reshoot shut it off, an intruder that was going to flee could just stick around because hey, what you know, the alarm shut off. Let that son of a bitch ring long and loud, make the security company call you, and have them on the phone while you investigate. Yes. My parents both work/ed for a security company, and they told me this all the time. My mom once worked, she worked there for 40 years. Lots of different positions as the person who would call people's apostrophe houses if their alarm was going off for 30 seconds. This lady said she got home from work and noticed a few things out of place. Not like her whole house was overturned or anything, but enough to freak her out, and she knew that the dispatch would come if the alarm was going off, so she decided to keep it going to call the police rather than turning it off and dialing 911, and thank God she did. The police came, she turned off the alarm, and they found 2 burglars with guns and a whole slew of her personal belongings hiding in a closet in the basement. Who knows what would have happened if she deactivated the alarm and never had the police show up. I got a letter in the mail, addressed to my college campus mailbox address with my full name and mailbox number written on it. It was a Christmas envelope with the address written in purple marker, stamped from Nebraska, where I know no one, with no return address. Inside was a single coupon for a free Wendy's Frosty. Heart attack while I was driving. Pulled over and went into cardiac arrest. Visiting my aunt and uncle in an unfamiliar city where they live in a farm just outside city limits. I'm a night owl and decided to smoke a cigarette on their front porch because I couldn't sleep. They live in a rural agriculture area outside a city which is relatively well known for violence, and as I'm smoking, a random car starts pulling down their massive dirt driveway. I start having a mini heart attack because it's 3:30 am and someone was intentionally driving about a 1/4 mile to get up to the house. I start looking for rocks or anything to defend myself with right as this car pulls up next to the front door. Right as I'm deciding to either bolt back inside and lock the doors or attack guns blazing with a couple rocks I have picked up, the driver slowly rolls down his window. I hear a thud on the pavement by my feet. I shockingly drop all my rocks and my completely ashy cigarette as just stare blank-faced at the daily newspaper as the goddamn paper boy slowly turns around to finish the rest of his route. I had surgery in 9th grade to repair a birth defect that caused my sternum and ribs to grow inward. I spent 2 years with titanium bars supporting my chest. After the 2 years I had the bars removed from my chest. About 2 months after I woke up from a night terror thinking my chest was collapsing in again. Nothing in my life has ever scared me so badly. I still have nightmares about it. I was 13 and babysitting 2 7-year-old boys. One of the boys found his dad's gun. They proceeded to point it at me and threatened to shoot me because they found it funny. I still don't know how I talked them into putting the gun away. I had been babysitting them for a year on Wednesdays. That was the last night I did though. Experienced a very unexpected earthquake while hiking a volcano. Fell asleep in the living room watching TV. Wake up around midnight to my dad walking past me. He heads to the side door, unlocks it and starts walking to the chicken coop. By the time he's outside, I'm up and following after him, calling out in a whisper, "Dad, what are you doing?" No response. I think maybe he can't hear me despite being only a few steps behind him. Dad walks into the chicken coop and I lose sight of him for about 2 seconds. I walk into chicken coop and it's empty. I'm very confused now. There is only one door for the coop and I'm standing in it. Suddenly, there's a hand on my shoulder. Almost jump out of my skin and whirl around. It's my dad. He heard me walking outside, had followed after me trying to call out my name, but for some reason I hadn't heard him. Woke up around 3 am one night to loud tapping outside my bedroom window. My bedroom was in the basement of our house. I assumed it was raccoons or something trying to get into our neighbor's shed. After listening for a while longer, I managed to fall back asleep. In the morning I brought up the noise to my mom, who said she had heard a similar noise coming from that same side of the house, only she got out of bed and went to the front living room window to investigate. What she saw was a man emerge from between our house and our neighbor's place. He stopped in front of our home, took a long look before removing a pair of latex gloves, and then proceeded to walk down our street. I assume he was testing for weak spots or something, and luckily didn't manage to make it inside that night. I was about 11, sitting in my living room watching TV when suddenly the front door rattles. I look over at it confused, and it begins rattling harder, like someone is full on shaking it trying to open it. I run over and put my hands on the door trying to keep it closed with my puny 11-year-old body as I cry and scream hysterically until my dad comes. He's a pretty big guy, so he puts his hand on my shoulder and pushes me behind him and opens the door. It was our cat. She had gotten stuck between the door and the front door gate. Obviously not scary, but in that moment I was sure someone was trying to break in, and I was hysterical, and then felt very dumb. My family narrowly missed an armed carjacking. When I was about 10, a guy waved my family's car wagon full with my parents up front, me and my 2 siblings in the back, and dog in the way back down about 2 blocks away from where we lived. My dad, being the nice guy he is, pulls over, and the dude walks up to my mom's door. She rolls the window down, and the guy casually reaches in and opens the door and grabs my mom to pull her out. She screams Geo or something of the sort, and my dad floors it. We blast out of there, and my mom shuts the door. In the rear window the dude is jogging after us holding a pistol. We speed past our house and drive around for 5 minutes before my parents decided that we have to go home. There's nothing else we can do. Pulling back into our driveway was the most scared I've ever been in my life. This is all pre-cell phone, or at least before everyone had one. BTW. Wife texted me to say she lost our Tuyo in Tokyo. We are Canadians. A stranger brought him back. She turned her head away a few seconds to pick up something our son had dropped, and he had run into an elevator. When I was 4 or 5, I did something similar to your 2-year-old. My sister and I raced to the elevator of our hotel in Hong Kong, while our parents were just leaving the hotel room. The elevator opened, and I pressed a bunch of buttons and it suddenly closed on me. It then opened again, and I couldn't find my parents or my sister. The hotel floors all looked the same, which I didn't know at the time, as it was the first time I remember being in a hotel, or in an elevator for that matter. I started crying in the hallway thinking I would never see my parents or sister again. These 2 housekeeping staff heard me and brought me into a room where they gave me cookies and milk to stop me from crying. They then proceeded to take me to the lobby thinking that my parents would be there. They were, and as soon as I saw them, I ran as fast as I could and gave them a hug. Guy tried to kidnap me off the side of the road, grabbed me and pulled me into his truck. I hit him with a bag of 1 liter bottles I had just gotten from the corner store and took off for the woods. Glad he decided to take off instead of chasing me. I've told this story before, but it always sticks with me and gives me goosebumps when I think about it. I was driving home late one night when I saw a girl on the side of the road asking for help. I distinctly remember every nerve in my body suddenly going on edge, and I locked the doors as I drove past. Old car had manual locks, but something was telling me that no matter what, I shouldn't stop and help this girl. As I went by her, I remember her yelling FCKU. I felt guilty for not doing anything about it, so next morning I looked up reports in the area to see if I could find information on her. Turns out a guy got carjacked in the exact same area trying to help a girl in distress. He pulled over, and a group of people beat him and left him on the side of the road while they took his car. The girl in the report perfectly matched the description of the girl I saw. I went on a film and trek with my Boy Scout troop several years ago. It was a great trek, but one night I woke up to my tent mate violently shaking. It looked like he was having a seizure. I was freaking out. A few moments later he calmed down and woke up. He then asked why I looked so terrified, and I explained to him why. He gave me a weird look, then said, "Oh, I was dreaming. that I jumped into a cold lake. Probably the most panic-inducing moment in my life, judging by the fact that we were deep in the wilderness, but luckily nothing was wrong. Blew a tire on I-75 in Gap. My wife and kids were in the car with me. The car spun around 180 degrees, and we were facing a Mack truck for a second before the car swung back around forward and skidded off the road to the left. Traffic stopped completely, and several guys helped push my car to the right shoulder. I don't know how that truck didn't destroy us. We should be dead. Was riding a motorcycle going 50 miles per hour and had a woman in a minivan pull out 40 feet in front of me. I put the motorcycle in the slot on the double yellow line with oncoming traffic. All I could think was FCK, this is going to hurt, and I somehow managed to hit nothing. Was day tripping in Dublin with my parents and sister. We went to a busy restaurant called Bewley's. It was the 90s. My parents were up ordering food, and my sister and I found a seat/table somewhere in the restaurant. It was bustling with people. I wanted a specific drink and forgot to tell my mom to get it for me, so I left the table and went up to the counter, told my mom what drink I wanted. I was heading back toward the table my sister was at, but because it was so busy I forgot where it was. I couldn't see it. Sensing my confusion, a woman said that I had to come with her, that my parents said that I have to wait with her. She was sitting at the table with a man. Even though I was like 7, I could sense that something was not right with that statement. Sure, I was only up at the counter with my mother. I said no thanks to the woman, and in that moment, seen the top of my sister's head. I sat down not thinking anything of what happened. It gets weirder. So mom and dad come forth with food, and next minute mid-eating, the same woman and man who tried to convince me to stay with them walked over to our table. She said to my parents, "You have beautiful kids." She put down 2 bars of chocolate on the table and said they were for us. With that she took off with the man out of the restaurant. My mother remarked to my dad, "Well, that was strange," and I said yeah. She asked me to come with her and said that you wanted me to. My mother and father nearly fell off the seat. My father was raging. TL/DR. Woman tried to manipulate me so she could abduct me in a restaurant. A strange exchange of chocolate giving was had. My father raged. Confronted a guy that was trying to subtly force a girl that was too drunk to get into his car. Known the guy for years and wasn't surprised. The girl was a friend's sister out visiting and had never met this guy before that night and didn't speak to him at all until she was full on sloppy drunk. The guy got pissed at me and cornered me at the bar to threaten me to shut the F up. I told him that what he was doing was wrong, but the whole time my legs were like jelly and I thought I was going to throw up. I'm not a fighter and I've never even thrown a punch. Some of my friends saw what was happening and got me away from him. He ended up following me across the bar and grabbing my arm while yelling at me. I pulled my arm away and turned away. I heard a scuffle and turned back to see him being dragged out of the bar by 3 of my friends. Turns out he had raised his fist to hit me from behind, and they had my back. The girl went home that night with her sister, who was oblivious of the whole situation until near the end. Edit. Wow. Thank you for all the kind words. For me it was a very intense and scary experience. I'm just glad she didn't have one as well. Edit. Thank you for the gold, kind stranger. I slept over my cousin's house. We were playing around in his room like 14-year-olds, talking about Halo and playing with all the random stuff on his floor. All I remember from that day is opening my eyes, lying down on his hardwood floor with my head bleeding. They said that I had a seizure and slammed my head on the room's heater. You know, the giant, hard metal ones. I guess the scary part was that I wasn't aware it was happening as it happened. I'm lucky they were there that day. When I was around 8 or 9, I was out hiking in the mountains with my uncle and brother, who was riding his bike. He started getting bored, so he decided to ride back to camp. We were on our way back. About 5 minutes after he left, we came around a bend and were maybe 30 feet from 2 adult grizzly bears. We stopped dead in our tracks, had a quick stare down, and then they took off into the trees. After standing there stunned for maybe 10 seconds, 2 park rangers came out of the trees, asked if we saw any bears, and then took off in the direction we pointed them in. After the brief exchange, my uncle remembered my brother in a head and started panicking. He picked me up, I never was a big kid, maybe 50 pounds at the time, and ran all the way back to camp to find my brother sitting there. The look of panic on my uncle's face will haunt me till I die. Saw this huge 1-foot red spider on the wall under the deck. After years I was afraid of going down there, but now I think the culprit was a broken rake. Hit a fence head first while skiing, flipped over it, got knocked unconscious, ended up on a different trail, and pulled my hamstring. If I didn't have a helmet I would be dead right now. Sleep paralysis. It only happened to me once, but that was enough. I was staying in an old hotel that was rumored to be haunted, of course. My mom and I had gotten there late, after driving for hours. Had a couple of glasses of wine before bed. Then I had creepy dreams. I woke up laying on my stomach and thinking, okay, those were just dreams. You are now awake in a comfy bed. As I was thinking about how comfortable the pillow was, and how I wish I had one at home, a wave of pure dread washed over me, and I was thinking, oh no, oh no, oh no. Then at the foot of the twin-sized bed, I felt 2 hands slam down on either side of my feet, one at a time, as though someone was leaning all of their weight on their arms. Then something the size of a 4-year-old climbed up my body at freakish speed, and hissed loudly in my ear. My eyes were closed this whole time, but I squeezed them shut harder, and could see what looked like TV static. I tried to yell for my mom, who was in the other bed in the room with me, but I could only get out muffled sounds. Then it ended. I know it was sleep paralysis, but it was so real that I understand now why people believe that it is real demon/ghost/etc. My family and I had recently moved into an old home on the top of a very steep long hill that was incredibly annoying and daunting to get up and down. The home was pretty isolated. One night I was in the kitchen getting a snack when I could have sworn I heard some branches breaking. I was 12 at the time. BTW. I turned off the kitchen light to eliminate the glare on the window, and by the time I came back to investigate, nothing was there. I concluded it was probably just some animals, and I was being paranoid, but I still couldn't shake that feeling in my gut. Next morning I told my mom, before heading to school, that I heard something, and she said the same thing, probably just an animal. When my mom came to pick me up that day, the first thing she told me was that she found a pair of keys outside the kitchen window. There was a single Toyota key and some other miscellaneous key right outside the window I stood at every night. The only people who knew where we just moved didn't drive a Toyota, and even if they did, WTF would they be doing at our house at 10 at night? My mom took this to the police, and all they could do was patrol that night to see if anyone cared by looking for their keys. No one did. We never found out whose keys they were, but now anytime I hear something outside I bolt to the windows trying to catch the creep. Actually, 6 years later at the same house, I was walking into my dark room, it was nighttime, and saw someone outside my window with some bright device in their hands. Instead of calling the police or waking up my family, I went to the window and said, "What the fuck?" as if that would do anything. Turns out it was some young guy delivering my mom's meds. Scared the Jesus out of that guy. So embarrassed, all I could was say, "Oh shoot, okay," and made my brother get the meds. Never saw that guy again. Also, that device was just an iPad. I was so furious I couldn't even tell what he was holding. When I was around 7, I had a dream about my mother. She was surrounded by people in white with a hole in her stomach. Throughout the dream she kept getting sicker and sicker. She eventually passed away in the dream. I woke up crying, and my mom asked me what happened, and I told her that she was going to die. She said she wouldn't, it was okay. My mom passed away about 5 months later. She had stomach cancer, which I didn't know about until I was older. She had been sick for a long time. Another dream I had was about my little cousin getting hit by a car when she ran into the street outside of a community center we went to a lot. 2 weeks after I had the dream, she stepped out into the middle of traffic because she saw our grandpa across the street. I grabbed her before the car hit her